is a famous victory, a magnificent performance.
It's every athlete's dream. To be better than the rest. To be the best. To win. But what if your sport isn't in the Olympics? What if you got a taste and nothing more? What if your sport was nothing without the Olympics? What if you could never make your dream come true? On September 2013, the International Olympic Committee voted on one of 3 sports to make the 2020 Olympics in Tokyo. First up to serve, squash. Squash is a bit like tennis with laws and twice as fast. It is featured in the Commonwealth Games since 1998. Squash has never been in the Olympics. In 2005, they came so close yet so far. They won the vote. But it wasn't enough, failing to get the required 2/3 majority required to be recognised as an Olympic sport.
I think if you ask any squash player, I think you'll find the Olympics would be the pinnacle of our sport.
Australian squash player Aaron Francombe is ranked 38 in the world in squash. In any other mainstream sport, he'd probably be raking it in and have a million fans screaming his name. He started playing squash when he was just 8 years old.
You ask any kid what do they want to do, and they do talk about Olympics. Unfortunately, in our sport, we haven't had the opportunity for kids to come through and say something like that, but it'd be no different to a mainstream sport such as running or whatever it is. I'm sure we'd be having kids coming in saying they want to be an Olympian and play squash in the Olympic Games. I mean, if you look at, like you were talking about with the YouTube, with all the clips for the Olympic bid, like people like Nicole David.
Nicole David has been the women's world #1 for more than 7 years, but she believes her greatest achievement is yet to come.
I would happily trade all my 6 world titles for an Olympic gold medal.
She, like Aaron, would do anything to get into the Olympics.
I'm very hopeful squash will win the vote to get into the Olympics. I mean, I have heard a bit of feedback from the players overseas, and we are a bit concerned about wrestling being the favourite sport going in, as being removed from the Olympics, and I don't know if they justifiably got removed. I mean, all squash players, I will be fingers crossed, because everyone will be sitting on the edge of the seats waiting for that vote, because it will make such a big difference to our game.
Squash attracts people from many walks of life. Ollie is a former New South Wales squash president and was also vice president of Squash Australia. He first started playing squash when he was 48. He hopes squash's entry into the Olympics won't be a long wait.
20 years ago, squash wasn't that much of a spectator sport because it's so fast. But with the advent of the all-glass courts and the new technology and how they film squash, it's become much more amenable to the person who doesn't know anything about the game. Well, the Olympics are the most important sporting event in history. And if juniors have an opportunity to play sport at that level and represent their country, which is extremely important for a whole range of reasons, not the least of which is, after all, anybody who wants to achieve anything out of life, one of their main goals is to represent their country. Olympics would be the absolute icing on the cake, and I think the sport deserves it. We are a drug-free sport. We have the highest levels of governance in the administration, and I know because I've been involved in it. So I can only say to you, bring it on.
Second up to bat, a joint venture between softball and baseball. Softball and baseball have featured in the Olympics since 1996, but were given the boot by the IOC in 2005. Their last appearance was in 2008 at the Beijing Olympics. After softball was taken out of the Olympics, government funding is little for this ball game in Australia. Taylor Sitzkronis has been playing softball for New South Wales for more than 5 years, and for Australia more than 2 years. Her dreams of playing in the Olympics were crushed in 2005 when softball and baseball got the boot. She hopes softball will make a comeback in the 2020 Olympics in Tokyo. But just when did those childhood dreams start?
How'd you first get into softball?
Mum and Dad used to play. Well, Dad played baseball, Mum played softball, and yeah, I was just very energetic, so they decided to put me into softball, and that's what I brought it down.
It's this Olympic dream that keeps Taylor hungry, thirsty to do her best for her country. She made it clear that playing in the World Championships just didn't compare to playing in the Olympics.
What's the difference between World Series and playing in the Olympics to you?
Well, it's a lot bigger. The Olympics are a lot bigger. Softball, it's only like the world champs is only softball. The Olympics is all different sports, and it's a bigger experience, I guess.
She is hopeful softball will bounce back. Kathy Kerr is New South Wales Softball's General Manager. She has worked for Softball New South Wales for over 14 years. She started playing before she was even a teenager at 12. She is a former national player and has been involved with the sport for over 3 decades, working in both the Sydney and Athens Olympics. She too hopes Taylor's dream of playing in the Olympics will come true.
What do you think an Olympic medal would mean to the youngsters in softball like Taylor here?
Oh, certainly because they've had a bit of a taste as they're growing up. They've seen softball in the Olympics, so I would think that, she'd be pretty keen to get it back in there so she can do some things like her idols have done.
Which sport do you think will be included on September 8th into the 2020 Olympics, and why?
Personally, I'd like to see softball and baseball, but I think probably wrestling's ahead at the moment. They have probably more of the sympathy votes. They have a lot of European votes, whereas softball's not very big in Europe. But hopefully softball will get through.
Third up and ready to rumble, wrestling. Wrestling has been in the Olympics since its humble beginnings in ancient Greece. Many people, however, still don't understand the sport, but not this kid. Up-and-coming wrestler Attila Orazamlu has won gold medals nationally 5 times and even came second against the Americans and New Zealanders in an international tournament. He, like Taylor and Aaron, hoped for a chance to play in the Olympics. He too had humble beginnings, starting wrestling since he was 8.
How did you first get into wrestling?
Well, me and my dad went to this kebab shop, and one of our family friends said you should come down to our club. So we decided. My dad said yeah, and I went to training. He said I wrestled good, so I went to my first competition. I won the gold medal.
What would winning Olympic gold mean to you? For Australia.
It would be amazing. I can't explain it to words. I can't put it to words. I don't know. It's just amazing.
His dream of playing the Olympics, however, could be taken away forever, with wrestling removed from the Olympics earlier this year in February. His passion for wrestling burns brighter and brighter each day.
I love wrestling, like my life and everything. I grew up when I was wrestling, and I reckon, the best sport is wrestling. That's the first one sport, and it made Olympic star. And I don't know, I can't explain.
Don Brown is president of New South Wales Wrestling. He, like Attila, was shocked at wrestling's removal from the Olympics.
What was your reaction when the wrestling was first cancelled from the Olympics in February?
Basically, everybody was horrified that they could think that this was going to happen. But it's not as bad as it looks, because, in my opinion, wrestling will be the selected sport for 2020. Because they've made rule changes, and the rule changes are for the better, and the spectators can understand the sport more.
Why do you think there's a misconception and people don't understand wrestling?
Well, it's a very fast sport, as you've seen here today. It's a very fast sport, and it's technical, and people can't work out how the points are scored.
Previously, wrestlers only had to win 2 out of 3 rounds to win. Wrestling is now scored with cumulative points. Just like other Olympic sports, every action, every mistake, and most importantly, every point will count.
And sometimes the third round was 1 point, and that's all that was scored in it. Because one wrestler would avoid wrestling, and that was the main aim of the job. If he avoided it and he won the round, he won the match. He had two rounds to 1. Major change.
What do you think of all the Olympic dreams that might be cut short because of this potential removal?
I don't think there will be any cut short, because wrestling will be there.
But with squashball's innovation and softball and baseball's team spirit, how do we know for sure? How do we know ever if our dreams will ever come true? For 2 of these young athletes, the Olympic dream will forever be a dream. But for one, it could be a reality. For one, their dream could come true. And with that, on September 8, the decision was made. Who would make it? Squash's innovation? Softball and baseball's team spirit? Wrestling's history? There would only be one winner here.
With 49 votes, wrestling has been elected for
And with that, true Olympic dreams would have to wait another 4 years. But why? We talked to Mike Tancred, Media Director of the Australian Olympic Committee, to discuss the final decision.
Why do you reckon wrestling won? What got it for him?
Well, there's 3,000 years of history there in wrestling. They've been on the Olympic program since the ancient days. They really needed to reinvigorate themselves, to reinvent themselves because they were tired, and they did that. And in the end of the day, they introduced more women's events in their proposal. And there's a very big push in the Olympic movement to have what they call gender equality, so as many men as women competing in the sports. So what they did, wrestling, in their proposal is they dropped 2 men's freestyle events and replaced them with 2 women's freestyle events. So they had 6 and 6, and that was very impressive as far as the IOC members go, and they plonked for wrestling.
What will the future hold next for wrestling? Attila was hopeful of an Olympic debut in the 2020 Olympics.
Or even if I don't win and I came that far to the Olympics, I'll still be proud of myself because that's a big achievement. Like just to make it into the Olympics and representing Australia.
He believed it was wrestling sportsmanship that clinched it for them.
Like everyone's kind, everyone will help you out, and that's what I think like wrestling is good. But like, and like in wrestling they teach sportsmanship, like everyone in the sideline like cheering you on, like in tennis or something, just everyone just sitting down and talking.
So it's the supportive culture of wrestling that keeps you wrestling.
Because when I first started, I found it was like so fun. My first tournament, I won a gold medal. I didn't even know what I was doing.
Meanwhile, Don's prediction was correct.
How do you feel about the IOC's decision?
Well, it was what I expected it would be. When you've got countries like Russia winning 15 medals out of wrestling at the Olympic Games, Russia is not going to let wrestling get out of the sport of the Olympics. That's basically it. Nothing was unexpected.
He was adamant this test was a good wake-up call for wrestling and other established Olympic sports.
The reason that we're put to this test is because of the people that want TV coverage, and the sport was too hard to understand. People didn't understand how the points were scored. FILA has changed the rules to make it easier for the spectators to understand. So that's the guts of it.
What does wrestling staying in the Olympics mean for the sport?
It means everything. Simple. Everything. Because not in the Olympics. They haven't got a major goal to go to. World Championships, everybody's got World Championships. But the Olympic Games is selected. Done.
Meanwhile, softball and baseball were down and out.
What do you reckon of the IOC's decision, and was it fair?
It's a pretty shit decision, to be honest with you. You know, I always dreamed to play for Australia at the Olympics, and yeah, I can't really now. I can represent my country, but I can't go to the Olympics unless I swap to wrestling or something. So, yeah.
But like all these young athletes, she too will forever love her sport.
What would it mean to you to play in it? If the IOC actually changed it?
It obviously mean a lot, because it's like always been my dream, but you know, yeah, I think they should change their mind, because it'll make a lot of people happy.
To kids thinking of taking up a new sport, she said this.
Play softball, it's a good team sport. Yeah, it's fun, team orientated.
Kathy too acknowledged wrestling's history was always in the back of their mind.
What do you reckon of the IOC's decision? Was it fair?
Oh, it's probably fair in some ways, but there's probably a lot of sports. I mean, I'm biased because softball should, my guys should be there. But probably wrestling are very happy because they think they should be there. And wrestling's probably, because they got the history, I think they got over the line. Fair, there's probably a lot of sports, not just wrestling.
She still had hope for the future stars of softball.
You can still go to World Championships. So the Olympics, we're only in 4 Olympics. So prior to that, since 1965, we've been in World Championships. So World Championships are every 2 years, Olympics are only every 4. So it means that they can go to World Championship every 2 years. So, and that's the pinnacle of our sport.
Aaron made it clear squash would bounce back.
How do you feel about the IOC's decision?
I mean, it's disappointing for squash. It's one of these decisions that will make a big difference to our game. So I think you had a lot of people sitting there with their fingers crossed about squash going into the Olympic Games, and I think all squash players across the whole world will be disappointed that we didn't get the opportunity to get into the Olympics. At the end of the day, for squash, I mean, the game over the last, say, 10 years has dramatically improved, and the prize money in the professional tour has got higher. So, in all respects to squash, I think even still though it hasn't got into the Olympic Games, there's a lot of improvement in the game that has happened. If you look at the PSA and the PSA TV, the quality of the filming of the matches, the 3-ref system, it's all improving and moving forward with time, which is fantastic for squash, and I still think it will keep moving forward even though it's not part of the Olympic Games. So at the end of the day, if we keep pushing the game like we are and trying to keep progress the prize money along the way and keep the tour going and trying to keep building it, then I only see positive for squash.
He has never regretted playing squash.
My highlight in my career was probably playing in the world. I'd probably say either playing in the World Teams Championships or going to the Commonwealth Games playing for Australia. For me and my kids, to have that opportunity, I mean, in my mind, having that opportunity was a fantastic experience. To travel the world and play a sport that you truly love, I would never take away that experience in my life, and I really enjoyed it. And for any kid to have that experience, I think it's a fantastic opportunity.
Ollie too was hopeful squash will be back to fight another day.
I won't say we're not disappointed, of course we are. That's the beginning, not the end for us. We just need to do more to convince the Olympic people that we should be, because the Olympics is the pinnacle of any athlete's career. That is the benchmark by which they measure their excellence. If they can medal representing their country, that's the highest achievement they can make. Forget the money, forget everything else. It's winning at the Olympics. And that's what we need to do.
And for the little kid not too sure they want to keep going with squash if they can't play in the Olympics, Ollie had this to say.
Well, there's 2 answers to that. The first answer is a question. Do you enjoy the game and do you benefit? The answer is a resounding yes. With regard to you can't win an Olympic medal, not yet. Not yet is the answer to the second question.
Simon Pham, UTS News.